Hello everyone, welcome to another Voice Essentials live hangout. It is so good to see so many of you jumping in here. I want to say a special hello to Toll House Queen, who is by their own description a newbie here, so welcome. You'll find that we here at Voice Essentials, we are a friendly, very supportive group of people from across the globe who, just like you, want to develop their voice, improve their sound, and we hang out here generally once a week, Mondays at 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Of course, if you're watching this show as a replay, you too are welcome. It is so good to have you joining in. Today what we're going to be doing is answering people's questions in the live chat, so I hope everyone's got their live questions ready to go. I can see Karen from Singwise channel has jumped in as good. It's always good to see you, Karen. Can I tell you all, and you're all, for those of you who are regulars to this channel, and to the live hangouts, you are going to have a bit of a chuckle at my expense, because I'm actually right now sporting what I suspect is a broken rib. Now, actually, it even hurts to laugh. Yes, once again, I have received some damage playing touch football. Now, if you are like my wife, you may well be forgiven for asking the question as Jody did this morning. My wife's name is Jody. She said to me this morning over breakfast, "Do you think it might be time to give the touch football away, Daniel?" To which I said, "No, I'm not giving up my touch football." Touch football in Australia is a community social sport that I play every week on a Tuesday evening. And again, for those of you who are here regularly, you will know for the last couple of seasons, I seem to just constantly go from one injury to the next. The last injury that I got was a dislocated finger, which then broke it in two places. It's slowly getting better, but it's still got a bit of a twist to it. It's a bit wonky. And now, last week, I got tagged. So touch football is all about you have to avoid being touched in the play. But this big fellow, he must have been at least 2 feet taller than me, not quite, but he was a big guy, came through and hit me. And it hurt in the moment, but I played on, I soldiered on. And but you know what, over the last couple of days, it's been getting just like a broken rib. I've had broken ribs before. Just like a broken rib would, it has been getting sorer and sorer, and it to the point where we had the home doctor out yesterday so that I could get a referral. Here in Australia, you need a referral to then get an x-ray. I've had the x-ray, I'm waiting for my doctor. She's going to be thinking I'm constantly in the wars. My doctor will then get the report, and so I'll find out whether it's broken or not. Ultimately, there's nothing that can be done for it. It's just good for me to know whether it's broken or not. Jody wanted me to get the x-ray simply so I wouldn't play touch football tomorrow night. Oh, that's sore. Which I'm not going to. Rest assured, my pain level at the moment is too high for me to go and play touch football. So, anywho, the reason I tell you all that is if you see me wince or grimace during today's live hangout, you will know why. It's the second rib. It's right. Oh, gee, it's very sore. I hope you're not sporting a broken rib. I hope you're in full health, and I hope you're in good voice. Today what we're going to do is we're going to answer many of your questions. So make sure that as you go along today in the live chat, ask your questions. Linda, as always, our ever faithful Linda is going to be... I've got a bug in my face. Linda is going to be gathering and collating your questions and writing them down. As per normal, we'll start with some questions that were written in the live chat last week, which was we had our guests on, Dr. Gillian Kays and Jeremy Fisher from Vocal Process in the UK. Wasn't that fantastic? I told you at the beginning of the hangout, if you were with us, that it was fantastic. It was fantastic. I try to get international level pedagogues singing teachers of international quality onto the show every couple of weeks. Next week, and certainly Gillian and Jeremy are of that caliber. And next week, we have Joanne Bozeman, who is the wife of Kenneth Bozeman. Now, that is not why she is going to be on the show. Kenneth Bozeman, for those of you who remember from last year's shows, Kenneth Bozeman came on and talked to us about vocal acoustics and registration. He is like one of the world's leading experts in this area. His wife is also a highly regarded singing teacher. She is going to be coming onto the show next week to discuss with us basically women's matters, issues pertaining to women. So the things such as the impact of the menstrual cycle, hormonal fluctuations, menopause, these things that impact pregnancy, that can impact the female voice. Now, to all of those of you who are of the male gender and watching the show, this does not mean you can't tune in. It simply means you can tune in and learn some things about our female friends who have a lot to contend with when it comes to hormones and their voice. And it will, at the very least, increase your empathy towards our female friends. Ladies, you need to tune in to next week's show. There is going to be so much really high quality information. Joanne is co-authoring the book with a couple of other people, people who we've had on the show before, and now that I will go to say them, I can't remember their names, as in their names escape me for a moment. But people who we've had onto the show before, they're co-authoring together a book about this subject. And so I've invited Joanne to come on and talk through these issues with us so that we all might learn some of the strategies around it and how best to work through what can be, you know, very... I've got this... Oh, I got him. All these strategies that we can put into place for those of you, ladies, who really find these areas challenging. Specifically, well, not just specifically, but we're going to talk a lot about menopause. Ladies, if you're of the era where you're either heading into, you're in the middle of, or you're post-menopause, Joanne is going to have a lot to say about that subject. So I hope you'll tune in next week. It's going to be a really worthwhile chat. Enough about that for now. Let's get into talking about your questions. And so I'm going to jump over here. Wow, there's a lot of you in the live chat today. It's so good to have you all here. Let me jump over and get to the questions. So we're going to pick up on some questions from last week. As I said, start leaving your questions for Linda to collate. Adam last week asked, do you have any tips for someone looking to make their first public solo performance? Adam, my suggestion to you is do it. The biggest thing that you need to do when it comes to your first live performance is simply do it. Yeah? Your first performance is simply going to be that, your first one. And in fact, I would encourage you to not place any expectations around that performance other than the doing of it. So when we talk about performance, performance is an art. And in fact, performance, whilst I can work on stagecraft with students, and in fact, I've just actually come. This morning I spent 3 hours with 8 wonderful singers, all in their senior years, because I was doing a masterclass for the Brisbane City Council. Brisbane City is the council the city I live in, and they are putting on 10 masterclasses in preparation for a big cabaret showcase of senior singers. Fabulous concept. It's been going for about 7 years, and this is the first year I've been invited to be one of the masterclass teachers. And this morning I spent, I workshopped with 8 singers, and some of that workshopping was in developing stagecraft. Stagecraft is the way you use your mic stand, the way you walk onto stage, the manner in which you share your patter, the way you talk about your song. All of these skills that are part of stagecraft. So we can certainly, workshop stage... Oh, dearie me, I haven't even had lunch yet. We can certainly workshop stagecraft in studio, here in lessons. What we can't practice is the actual experience of performance. As in, we can't practice that here in the studio. The only way you can develop in your craft of performance is to perform. And so that means you've just got to get up there and do it. And when you first start out, that is the only expectation that I would encourage you to place upon you, that you actually did it. And as you then get better, that you can start to be thinking about, well, I need to be, I need to refine this area, I need to improve that area. I want to be better with my pitch, or I want to be better with my storytelling. But to start with, don't weigh yourself down with too much expectation. Your aim should be to step off after your first performance and simply be able to be satisfied in the knowledge that you did it. And that's where I'd encourage you to start, Adam, in your first public solo performance. I would hope it will never be your best performance, but it will be your first. And I think many of us remember our first. That's a bit cliche, isn't it? But we kind of do. We remember our first time, and it's the same with performance. I want you to just get up there, enjoy it. Really savor the fact that you have been bold enough, brave enough, and you're ticking something off on a long list that some people have in life, and that is a bucket list item to get up and sing solo. So that's what I encourage you to do, Adam. Riley writes, can you please watch Zayn Malik rock me, specifically the high note, and please tell me what voice he is singing in? Riley, can I just let you know, and actually let everyone know, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, Riley, if you're watching today, and I hope the rest of you don't take this the wrong way. I actually don't provide free reviews of singers, of other people's singing. For the most part is that I simply just don't actually have the time. That sounds like a bit of a cop-out. It's just literally, I just cannot, on YouTube, in the comments section of the videos, I am constantly, it is just never ending, as it shouldn't be. But the one thing I cannot do is go and watch all of these performers that everyone's asking me to watch, including their own performances. Now, we do have a space here at Voice Essentials in which you can upload or link one performance per week. We're very clear about this in the group rules of the Facebook community page, the Voice Essentials community page on Facebook. And it's such a fantastic group. You can upload one per week, only one, because we don't want to spam people's Facebook walls, but one performance per week where you can share your performance of a vocal, of a performance, and the community will respond very encouragingly. Like, the community is just fantastic here at Voice Essentials, and will, at times provide direction and instruction. And just a little point too, if you ever see a person by the name of Craig Burnett comment on your videos, and I'm going to call him out because Craig is a long life friend of mine. He is an award-winning singer, like, of the highest caliber, and a singing teacher in his own right. He is fabulous, and also he's also a very good friend. If you ever see Craig comment on your video and he offers some instruction, I have given him permission to do that because you really should listen to that. He is really very good. And so I just wanted to call him out and acknowledge his participation in the Facebook group. So occasionally I will jump on, and when I have time in my week, I will jump on and watch some of those performances. Not all of them, because again, I just don't have time to be doing that, across my week. It's not because I don't value your performances, I do, but really it's the community that comes in and joins in this. But occasionally I'll jump in and I'll make some comments and give some direction and some feedback. But in general, certainly in the voice on the Voice Essentials comments here on YouTube, I don't offer direct feedback. So that's so you all know. So Riley, I'm not able to go and have a listen to Zayn Malik's Rock Me High Note for you. Adam Brown, what is a good term for a singer with a comfortable 4-octave range from bass to mezzo-soprano? We'd probably call them a baritone, actually, Adam. It's hard to know. Really, to classify a voice, you need to have the voice in front of you. We need to run scales. We need to see where the prima voce sits and where the voice comfortably orientates to. But again, don't get hung up on voice classification. As you all know, I've got a video on the subject that shows you how to identify your voice classification loosely, and I make that point in the video, loosely. But really, you don't want to get hung up on voice classification because often it's not a necessary thing, especially if you're doing solo work. Like jumping down here, Swang has asked, how do you fully find your natural singing voice and get comfortable with it? Talking-wise, I naturally speak mellow, so a lot of vocal coaches would make me do baritone vocal exercises. It never felt natural and would make my throat sore singing so low. Interesting, Swang. And after finding your exercises, my singing voice is actually very loud. I'm still not used to the sound, though. Okay, so how do you fully find your natural singing voice? Well, it comes back to pretty much the point I just made about identifying your voice classification, which orientates around your prima voce, that prime voice, that sweet spot, that 1 octave to 1.5 octave area where your voice naturally sits. Now, Swang, for you, it may well be that, that the tonal color of your voice presents as baritone, which might lead a singing teacher to orientate to the idea that your prima voce sits in the lower half of your register of your vocal range. What I hear you saying is that your prima voce sits, unusually so, it has to be said, in the upper end of your range. Now, that I'm very willing and open to the fact that could be well the case, because in fact my voice is not dissimilar. Where my tenor voice, most tenors would still find their prima voce in the lower portion of their range, whereas my prima voce, where I comfortably feel and sit the voice, is in the upper section of my voice, and so that's where I feel most comfortable. What we always want to do, though, and this is where technique is so important, is often when we rebalance a voice here in the studio by virtue of technique, when the voice is rebalanced, there can be, or can I rephrase that and not say rebalancing, because that almost leaves the impression that every singer that walks into my studio needs to start from ground zero, and that is not the case. Often I'm just picking up where another great singing teacher has left off, and I'm just the next chapter in the book of that student's development. So I want to just rephrase that. But if a student does walk in here and maybe they don't have a history of technical development in their voice, often that voice will need a recalibration, a rebalancing of the musculature. And that, in turn, can lead to the singer experiencing their voice in a very different way. In fact, We had today in the masterclass with the senior singers, we had the most amazing moment happen, and it was it was a female singer, and she was singing Bon Jovi's "Living on a Prayer." Now it was a really interesting choice, and to start with, to be honest with you, the singer and the song didn't match, and I thought, okay, how are we going to work with this? She was fully engaged. She was wonderfully engaged with the song, but the voice just wasn't lining up. It was a very lengthened, dominant, some of you would know the language, a very heady sort of head voice sound, trying to sing a rock song, which is more chest voice, short and a dominant mode 1 sound requirement. And so we went about looking to recalibrate, rebalance the voice to activate that short and a dominant sound, that chesty sound. And when we did, she hit this note, which the whole room was just, we were all, I couldn't stop laughing, which actually hurt because of my broken rib. It was phenomenal. Like, it was crazy. And it led me to think that perhaps, in fact, I didn't say this in the moment, there may be a reclassification of her voice if she was to apply it to contemporary repertoire more regularly, like "Living on a Prayer" by Bon Jovi. So you can see it's important that we know that the voice is well balanced, and in accordance with the disciplines that are being required of it, stylistically and genre-wise. And from that, we can then really determine what is the voice classification. Because it has happened in the past where students walk in and will say, "I'm a tenor." And you go, okay, cool. And then we go about doing work and whatever, and what happens is the voice rebalances, it recalibrates, and it actually reveals itself to be more appropriately classified as baritone. It may well even be a high baritone, but in fact the singer themselves is freed up tremendously, all because we've reorientated the self-perception of the voice, and that can be really important to do. Okay, I'm going to jump down to today's questions. Liz, hey Liz, Elizabeth has asked, is there a way to help with being tone deaf? Well, we first have to identify whether you actually are tone deaf. Tone deafness is a very, 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 very small group of this, certainly of the Australian population, and I would dare say this would be across the international borders. Tone deafness, otherwise known as amusia, is a situation where it's basically the colour blindness of the ear. And so where a tone deafness, and I think I've explained this on the channel before, tone deafness is where the ear can't detect, for example, a person saying their national anthem compared to with singing their national anthem. They can't hear, it all sounds monotone. Just like a colour-blind person, everything is monochrome. With the voice, with the ear, it becomes everything's monotone. So very, very, very small percentage of people are actually tone deaf or suffer from amusia. What the rest of us need to develop is our capacity for relative pitch, our ability to move from one pitch. And I find that most people, when they step into my studio here in Brisbane, most people can sing a single note. Yeah. If you're at home right now, you might like to try that. Yeah. Now, if you can sing that note with relative accuracy, you're almost certainly not tone deaf. Where we struggle is accurately moving from ya The accuracy between those 2 points, yeah, that's where we start to struggle. That's called intonation, your ability to intonate accurately between 2 notes. And that's often when we talk about pitch in lesson or inaccuracy of pitch, that's actually what we're generally talking about. It's not because you can't hear where the note or that there's a difference in the note. It's getting the voice, the larynx, to accurately govern that movement. And for those students, and I've got 2 or 3 even now, at any given moment I've got 2 or 3 students that do really struggle with intonation, with the accuracy of pitch. We have to drill notes, you know, and if that singer is willing to travel what can be a long, arduous road, then that pitch can develop over time, that pitch accuracy. Rails Isla, I am booked in for the ENT. I have a nuclear scan and ultrasound to be done again on my thyroid, as they believe that a minimum I have nodules on the inner side of it. Can those nodules be what is affecting my voice? If you're referring to thyroid nodules, if I can't, it's not my place to comment on nodules of the thyroid, but I certainly can comment to nodules within your vocal folds. And nodules, oh, we need to cancel that. Someone's trying to call. I'll just do not disturb. Oh, I'll just turn that off. I'm just going to turn my do not disturb on, everyone. Oh dear. The joys of live hangouts. If you have nodules on your vocal folds, so nodules are and you can watch Rails Isla, you can go onto my channel. There's a couple of videos about nodules on the channel. Nodules are a swelling that can actually harden and become callus-like on the surface of the vocal folds, typically in the front third of the vocal folds on a bilateral point, so happening on both sides, and it's due to an interruption of the ripple wave, and there tends to be a rubbing, and that forms the nodules. And nodules will impact the clarity of your tone, the stamina of your voice, so it'll fatigue quickly typically. It generally has an impact on your range, so it'll actually decrease your range and shorten your range so you don't feel like you've got access to higher notes. It can leave the voice feeling breathy and can add dirtiness to the sound. So yes, it can have a big impact on your voice. So I can't really comment on the thyroid per se, but look, your ENT is going to be the best place to diagnose any of the above. So whether it be nodules of the vocal folds, thyroid nodules, and even as I say, thyroid nodules, I'm for some reason I'm even questioning, is there such a thing as a thyroid nodule? For some reason I think there is. If there isn't, forgive me. Anyway, your ENT, this is why your ENT is the best person to diagnose those things. Not only the best person, the only person. Singing teachers, speech pathologists, it is not our place to diagnose. It is the place of the medical professional of an ears, nose and throat doctor, or otherwise known as an otolaryngologist, or a laryngologist to specifically diagnose your vocal concerns. From a medical standpoint, that is. Okay, Tony M. Live. I seem to be hitting a ceiling when it comes to my head voice. The throat is relaxed and open and my breath support is good. Could it be cord closure? Or should I be holding air back with the lungs? That's yes, it could be cord closure in the sense that it actually could be too much tension in your cord closure. Equally, it could be too little. It really does come down to achieving the right balance in your particular instrument. This is why voice is so hard to teach, so hard to learn, is because every instrument is unique. Yes, there are generalized rules around how we instruct a voice, but you know, I see some really unusual things in the way voices, you know, present and perform certain activities. You seem to be hitting a ceiling when it comes to your head voice. That would suggest to me that your thyroarytenoid muscle, your chest voice muscles, are not, you know, backing off and allowing your cricothyroid muscles, your lengtheners, to activate. And so we're not moving from mode 1 into mode 2 as effectively as we might like to. You might like to have a look at exercises like lip bubbles and letting the voice graduate through that registrational shift and allowing the voice to lengthen, lighten, you know, and be graded in the way it moves across that. As to whether you should be holding air back with your lungs, well, firstly, we'd correct that rhetoric, and I know you've written this into the comments, but you don't hold air back with your lungs. You hold air back, and even that's probably not the best way to say it, with the musculature that manages your breath flow. So that is your internal, on exhale, it's your internal intercostals, your abdominal wall and obliques. In releasing the elastic recoil, the passive elastic recoil of the diaphragm as it ascends and causes the lungs to release the air back into the atmosphere, causing a rebalancing of the atmospheric pressure. I hope that all made sense. Sometimes I listen, occasionally I go back and listen to something that I've said and go, not even I could make sense of that, Daniel. So, you know, this is the joys of live hangouts. Ashish Johnson, how long will we sing a song? How long will we sing a song in scale? How can I find my comfortable scale to sing? By the way, what is a scale? A scale, in fact, we cover this very question in Voice Essentials 1. So you can see this link going on down here. This is my online course, and we actually even ask that question, what is a scale, in one of the questionnaires. And a scale is basically any collection of notes. Ya is a 5-note scale. Ya is a 3-note scale. And so really you can kind of create any sort of scale formation and get benefit out of it. How long should you sing those scales? Well, depends on how quickly you get bored, I guess. And it all depends on what you're trying to achieve with the scale as well. And so you would add a range of different types of scales, and in fact in Voice Essentials 1 we go through this and we step you through it in a really measured way to sort of show you how you put these scales together to really get full benefit out of them. My friends are telling me when I sing my pitch is going out of the original scale of the song. Oh, okay. And in fact, I see a comment by Linda saying, I think you mean key. So the key of the song is basically where we center the pitch around. So if we're in G major, G, B, and D are going to be key notes in that, because that's what makes up the first, third, and fifth from memory. Yep. So when it comes to your pitch, it's making sure that your pitch orientates around the right notes within that key. So, and then we have the major scale of G is G, B, D, C. So G, A, B, D, C, E, F sharp, G. So G major has an F sharp, and that's what determines it as a G major scale. Anyway, so if you were to sing an F natural in a G major scale, it would no longer be a G major scale. It would be that F natural would be an inaccurate choice in a G major scale because it needs to be an F sharp. Getting into musicianship, which is really not what we leave that to other people. A lot of people are much better at the musicianship stuff than I am. Can you please tell me how to make, this is Brown Prince, and how are we going for time? I'm very conscious, my voice, I've been talking non-stop today already, so I'm conscious of my vocal loads today. Can you please tell me how to make your vocal thick and not go into nose? Well, you can, you certainly at times will have a thick vocal tone that is driven, is directed through the nasal cavity. It may thin out that thicker tone, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be, always really nasalized. That's a hard question to answer, Brown, because I think I would need some more clarity around that to answer you in detail. Can you please tell me how to make your vocal thick? Developing thickness into the tone comes from both the surface level that's coming into contact of the vocal folds, so it means that there needs to be more bulk in the vocal folds coming together, so we have more contact of shearing force, but also we want to have more depth of tone, so we want more shape throughout the vocal tract to colour that sound so that it's not narrow, because it is possible to have a sort of a thicker vocal fold that then passes through a narrow vocal tract, and so that's going to have a sort of a thin sound, but it might have a big dynamic. Does that make sense? And equally, you can have a thin vocal fold traveling through a big wide open vocal tract, and so that will change the color of it as well. So you know, there's no, yeah, so as far as making a bigger, thicker sound, an exercise like never, 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 no is going to be helpful, like a belt activity, which activates more surface contact of the vocal folds into a belt sound. That may prove helpful, Brown, I hope. Anita Sahu is asking, what is Alexander technique in singing? Alexander technique is, and can I say, I'm not an Alexander technician, so I would encourage you to maybe search out YouTube channels or more information about Alexander technique that I can give you. But certainly Alexander, I can give you a little bit of history. He was a theatre specialist who was noticing that he was having trouble with his voice. Now this is nearly 100 years ago, I think, from memory, dear me. And so he started to note that the way he was using his body on stage was then having an impact on his vocal health. And so his voice fell into disrepair, and the way he went about achieving and returning the voice to full health was by changing and altering his sense of body and the way he moved his body and his alignment. The benefits of this in singing are tremendous, and you know, being mindful of your body alignment and your body mapping and these sorts of things is so important. In fact, we did an activity with the seniors today where I did some workshop with one of the singers in thinking about the alignment, and immediately the voice changed. And it was all about where the neck was and how he was approaching the mic stand. And Alexander technique gets into things like how you get up and off a chair, how you sit on a chair, those sorts of things. So I don't want to go into too much more depth about it, Anita, simply because I'm not an Alexander technician, and I wouldn't want to give you the wrong information, but certainly that's enough to sort of give you some insights into the benefits that it holds for our singing. Tom Allen Hi Dan, do you have any tips for throat, jaw and laryngeal tension? Certainly, yes I do. Firstly, for contemporary singers, what we often have to do is firstly get the entire instrument involved. So that's getting the entire body, making sure you're activating your thighs, your knees, your hips, and getting your core activated, which in turn helps to release some of the build-up that becomes very laryngeally focused. That's the first thing that I would want to go looking for. And it's interesting because a lot of people would immediately go, well, we're going to free everything up here. Well, actually, let's get the whole body working, and then what we do is we go to here. So then what we then go looking for is there too much pressure being driven through the larynx? If there is, the tendency is going to be for the larynx to want to grip back and hold that air pressure back, which is going to be formed by virtue of extrinsic tension. So reducing the sense of air pressure and push through the larynx, we can release some of that extrinsic musculature. And then with the jaw, what you can do is practice singing through a song where you put your finger between your mandible and your upper teeth, and you sing through it. And what you want to do is avoid biting. You can also take the heels of your, this is just a practical thing, take the heels of your palms, sit them just in front of your ears at the temporomandibular joint point, and then drag that down your jawline. I hope I'm not the only person doing this right now, because I think it must look ridiculous. But one more. And what we're doing is we're creating some release in the muscles there with a bit of pressure and just dragging that down. If you do that 3 or 4 times, it will help to release that sense of tension and deactivate that tightness in the jaw. There's some little things that you can do that will be helpful. So first of all, body alignment. Second of all, breath pressure is something you'd need to look at. And then you can go looking at very topical things to do with the throat, jaw, and larynx. Oh, we're going to need to finish in a second, everyone. Ocean and Future King, can you add vibrato to a sustained vocal fry note? I don't think so. The vocal folds vibrato, yeah, there's no vibrato in that. Yeah, you can hear that small waver. Yeah, that's happening within the acoustic of the sound, and it is in part being formed by the vocal folds in team with the breath flow. The vocal folds, when they pulse for vocal fry, the moment I try to put any wave into that, certainly I'm not able to achieve any fluctuation that would be deemed as vibrato. Maybe you can, I'm not sure. I'd be interested to be shown if that can happen, but I don't think so. Ocean. Zahan J7, a new name. I haven't seen you here before. Welcome. Is it possible to support in head voice? Well, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not a person that regularly uses the term support in my teaching, because I think it can lead to the wrong mental image. It can create pressure in a lot of singers, and that same extrinsic structure that we're just talking about releasing, I think support can have that sense of tightness to it. So it's not a word I use a lot. That being said, if we were to use the word support, then yeah, really every sound we want to be supported. But what that support is, it changes. There's variance in that. So what we do want in head voice in mode 1 is an even, consistent flow of air where the vocal folds are elongated and sustaining the voice in a thin fold manner, but in a really even manner where there's no extrinsic structure that's causing them to grip or to over-engage. And can you support in whistle register? I hear some resonance. Well, whistle register, as we know, is only, and I don't think that we have any different information on this. I continue to say we may learn differently to this, but my understanding is that whistle register is genetically driven. There's a very small portion of the Australian population, the international population, that can actually do it from a genetic point of view. And so supporting whistle register, again, I think if you're a person that can do it, I'm not, but if you are, then yes, I would expect that you would still need to support and feed that air in a really even and consistent manner through the voice. I'm going to give our last question today to Mary Jane Ramos, who is another name I don't think we've regularly seen here on the channel. It's so good to have so many of you you're newbies on the channel. It's so good. I hope you take the opportunity to subscribe and hit the white bell icon for regular notifications for when we go live each week. Mary Jane, our final question for today goes to you. You've asked, how can I sing better? How do I avoid singing flat? Mary Jane, can I suggest to you that you learn to sing better, firstly by being able to acknowledge in and of yourself that you are a singer. Firstly, when you own that knowledge and you take on board that and you are a singer, then I would say to you, then what you've got to do to refine your capacity, to realize the full potential of your singing voice, in my humble opinion, the way to go about doing that is by virtue of developing your voice technically, to learn skills that then empower your voice. I often use the illustration of my son learns to play tennis, has been for 7 or 8 years, he's 14 now. And whenever I go to pick him up from his tennis lesson, it's actually more often than not, he's not playing a game of tennis in his lesson. He does that at other times. More often than not, I walk up and there is his coach standing just to the side of him while Jaden continues just for, one hit after the other in his, whether it be for his serve or his return. And they are literally just going through that motion, developing muscle memory, making small changes as we go along. And with his teacher, his coach, constantly saying, see how your ball toss, it went just a bit back. You've got to make sure the ball tosses a little bit more forward so that as you come over, the angle of the racket is correct, etc. And this is how we develop the voice the same way. Always remember, if all you do is sing songs, then all you do, if you only ever do what if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Singing songs is a part of good vocal development. And we had Jeremy Fisher last week on the show talking about the value of a vocal coach who does really orientate you to repertoire development. But we also had Gillian, who talked about the value of orientating the voice lesson through technical exercise and teaching the voice to learn different muscular setups, different muscle response. And we do that through technical exercise. And so learning to sing better, yes, you can learn to sing better, Mary Jane, but there is work to be done. And there is no shortcut. I think some people do walk into my lessons expecting me to have some fairy wand that I will, sprinkle pixie dust around the room. Some of it will fall on them and hey presto, they're now singing like their favourite singer. It just doesn't work like that. Sometimes I wish it would, but it generally doesn't. And so there is work to be done. But with good work comes good results. And and practice makes permanent. And so good practice makes good permanent. So I hope today's Hangout has been a really positive one for you. We did have, oh wow, I'm scrolling through. What question did I get up to? I just got up to question 10, and there are 26 other questions. I'm sorry, everyone. We just simply don't have time to answer the rest of your questions. Linda's, yeah, we're going to keep the rest. Linda's just writing a note for me in the Google Doc. Yeah, we will keep the rest for later, and hopefully we'll get to come back to them in a couple of weeks. Of course, next week we've got our guest, Joanne Bozeman, who, look, I really encourage you, jump in. It's going to be really informative. I'm going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot, as we do every time we have a special guest on. Because, as you know, here on the channel, I'm bringing some of the world's best singing teachers, and we're spending an hour with them. It is so incredibly valuable, what we are so privileged to be able to do here together on the Voice Essentials channel. I hope you'll tune in again next week. Hey, before you go, don't forget to hit the like button on the video today. I hope you've really enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. And it always, as you'll always, every time you hear a Dr. Dan video, you'll always hear me sign off by saying, I'm Dr. Dan.